Hello, welcome to the talk about education modules, where I will take you through what those education modules might look like and how they relate to other subjects around the university. My name's Anna Llewellyn, and I'm Deputy Director of Education, and so let's make a start. What is education? Education is something that we have all experienced. Since we were very young, we've experienced formal education probably since the age of 5, though possibly in different ways, though we're all at the same place now. So it's something that people have opinions on and experience of, which makes it quite interesting. But then there's it is also something that is academic theory and academic research into. It is what some people call a field, in that it draws from all these different disciplines: sociology, psychology, philosophy, political studies or political science. I've also mentioned cultural studies and history, but I think the ones we are stronger on in the department are the ones I've highlighted. Oh, cultural studies probably too. Not always at the same time, hence you get very different modules. You might get a module that is very philosophical in its tone or very psychological in its tone. And that can mean there's different ways of thinking, different types of assignments for you to do. So do look at that if you're picking our modules. What it does mean is that there is a lot of modules, and they should hopefully be something that interests you, either in topic-wise or in terms of the way we think in it. So what we are doing, we are posing and answering questions about education in relation to society, or society in relation to education. So here I'm hinting at the idea that they shape each other. There's probably a dialectical relationship, and it can be interesting to look at either or. But we are problematizing those systems and structures, which we have found ourselves a part. We have all arguably either benefited for or invested in education. We are here. You are studying. You are starting a wonderful degree at Durham. That obviously means something. There will be some of us, not me, that examines how people learn, which is often what people think education is about, but that's only a very few modules. They might take this further and link to what that means for educational practice or policy. For example, why is the education system different in England than it is in Shanghai, for example, or anywhere else around the world? So how does it link to other subjects around the university? Hopefully that's fairly obvious, as it largely draws from other subjects. So there are direct links to all of the social sciences. I've highlighted human geography and sociology perhaps more, because they share a lot of similar theorists. They can share specific research. Sociology even has a sociology of education module. So in majority of social sciences, there are very similar ways of thinking. They're about the social. How do we approach and understand the topics? There could be some links to the arts and humanities, could be philosophy or literary theory, could be some links to history, but slightly different ways of thinking. And I hope it's straightforward that modules that draw from psychology, of course, follow that way of thinking. So they're slightly different. So let's look at some of those modules. I've tried to bracket into what you can see the strands down the middle: psychological, and that one is sort of a clear line of thinking, even though they technically don't develop on each other. The social is kind of double the weight, because we've got social, cultural, and philosophical. There's a lot going on with the social. But you might be able to see we have things like childhood and youth, but we also have a very specific higher education. So some of these modules are about specific topics. In level 3, there's a whole module on the arts in education, or a whole module on digital society, which is not a technical module at all. It's just looking at the role of digital society and what does education mean in the digital world? Who does that include and exclude? There is a strand here, international. So every level we have some modules dedicated to internationalization and international study and theorization. Most of these are also social, cultural. And it doesn't mean that international is missing from the other modules. It just means that it will be there somewhere, but not necessarily it doesn't frame the whole module. And then I've got a few on the side there. Learning Lives is a new module at level 2, and that's quite interesting because that is about all what you might frame as non-standard education. And it could be, for example, forest schools, it could be education in hospitals, education in museums, so education in prisons even, which does have some links to criminology and things they do there. But again, different ways of thinking. So I hope that gives you an idea of the range of modules. So let's look a bit more specifically at what sort of questions. I've got some images here to help. If I go to the bottom left, that might be what you traditionally think of as education. So a child learning, playing, cutting, developing. So that's about more, could be more about the individual. Let's look at some other pictures. Bottom right, you may recognize, it's a higher education institution, the one you had just become part of. But it is also a place which has a lot of, it's quite formal. Possibly there's a formal meal go on. It's difficult to tell from the image, but there's lots of images around the walls. Most of them are, I think, of men looking at the images there. So there's a lot to unpack in that picture, socially and culturally, about what's going on. I'm going to jump to the top right. This is completely informal and probably less specific educational, but still about youth. And these people here have created their own space. It's under a bridge. And you can kind of argue that young people are excluded from adult and child spaces. This takes a longer argument, which I probably haven't got time to go into. But what I'm trying to signal is that we can look at sort of more informal ways of how youth are framed in society to help us answer other questions. And then top left, you can take this very political about what is the role of education. You can ask big questions like, is education emancipation, as many people suggest, or does it maintain the social order? And various theorists, we'll introduce you to various theorists. Sociology also have a lot of excellent modules on specific social theory that have opinions on those kinds of questions. So just to bring it all together, it is diverse ranges of thinking. They're normally consistent within a module, apart from maybe the level 1 have some variation. But as soon as you get to year 2, they are very consistent within the module, but not necessarily between modules. However, if you look, there are some modules that are more linked in terms of the way you think and develop ideas. It's not a subject that anyone will have studied before, probably. So it's not A-level or equivalent. So prior learning is never assumed. And I don't know if you caught there, but none of our modules have prerequisites. So you can very much come in at year 2 or year 3. It does connect to many other subjects. It is always part of everything we're doing. You're exploring questions about who we are in the world and what is the role of education. And we're interrogating a lot of those. And it's something we're all a part of and all invested in. And there I am. I started with a recent picture of me. There's a picture of me on the left where I probably started formal education, although arguably there will have been books at home, not arguably, there will have been books at home, and I would have started the process of education much before this. So that's a few thoughts I've left with you. You might want to think about that, your own relationship to education. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a lovely day.